Okay, let's go ahead and get going. Let me share the spreadsheet. Thank you for putting the link in the chat, Denise. That was super helpful. Can everyone see the share?
Yep.
Awesome. So how are things going with VL3?
VL3 is going well. I have achieved a working VL3 use case with EPAM service. Mostly all working as expected, but I found a problem with refresh use case. At this moment, refresh use case is not working correctly. I'm looking into the problem, and also I started to provide PRs for VL3, and I'll ping you with new PRs when I create them.
So the refresh use case problem, is the issue you're seeing specific or generic? Is it specific to VL3 or is it a generic problem with refresh?
I think it's related to VL3, only to VL3 stuff.
That's comforting. You know, it's good to know that we haven't created some kind of regression in refresh. But what we appear to have done is to find a new corner case for it. Cool. Let me know how that goes.
Okay.
Anything else on VL3 at this time?
No, that's it.
Excellent. All right. And then we've got the Calico NSM integration. So Artem, you're saying something about MemIF. Oh, this is the MemIF WireGuard. So what's going on with MemIF TON and WireGuard instabilities?
I saw that sometimes ping is not working. There is something wrong with L3 cross connect, I think, but I saw it only one or a couple of times, and I think we need to take a look at this on CI. Probably we will collect more logs and more information about this problem.
Is there an issue for this that's been open where we're collecting that data?
I have not created the issue for this, but I can do it.
Okay. I mean, it may also be worthwhile. I mean, one of the nice things with having an issue is occasionally I know magic tricks with VPP that are less obvious. So I presume that you're doing sort of standards things like checking show IP fib to make sure that that looks right. You know, running a VPP trace to see what's going on when the packets come in along the various pieces of VPP, that kind of thing.
Yeah, as I saw, something wrong with traces. Packets, it's not delivered to the destination.
Well, so typically when the packets aren't getting to the destination, you walk back through the chain until you can figure out where they're getting lost. Because you're absolutely right. If you don't have a packet that comes in on an interface, like if you were to set up a trace on a MemIF interface, the packet doesn't arrive at the MemIF interface, then something has gone badly wrong, but it's something earlier than where that packet is. And so you step back to the next piece in the chain to figure out what's missing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you know you may end up having to walk back a bit if you're not seeing any of the packets coming in. But that's the thing that absolutely happens. But that's kind of where I was. An issue could be handy because somebody can poke me to take a look over it, and I can sort of write a few words in response there. So, okay, so we got that, and cluster setup stabilization, is that related or is it something else?
No, it is a common problem, and I think it's done. Probably we need to wait a packet merge and take a look what happened.
Okay. And then we've got AF packet is not created on Calico. Is that still a going concern, or?
Yeah, I found that we cannot create a packet interface with Calico. Tap interfaces work fine, but a packet doesn't. I don't know the reason, but uh, we can see it only GKA cluster. So I
So
think.
the question is, if a packet is not created on Calico, do we get some kind of an error message as to why?
Yes, something like invalid interfaces or something like that. The error was from API VPP API call. So probably something wrong with the VPP configuration.
So I think I may know what's going on here. And this would be another one where it'd be good to have an issue to discuss. But this is probably what's going on. Normally, when we are doing AF packet, we create an AF packet, we create a VETH pair, we assign one into the VETH pair into the particular namespace of the pod that we're connecting to, right? And then the other end of the VETH pair, traditionally, when the VPP was running in our namespace, the other end of that VETH pair was running in our namespace, right? So when we would go to attach to it, it was living in the namespace of the forwarder, but the forwarder was also the namespace the VPP was running in, and so VPP was able to find that VETH. In this case, when AF packet is not created, I suspect what's happening is it's looking for that interface in the namespace of the external VPP, and it's not finding it. Is that possibly the issue?
Probably you're right, but as I remember, we discussed that we will use host process ID for and host namespace for forwarder, and Calico is also in the host namespace.
No, that's a good point. That's why I phrased it as a question, because you're absolutely right. We would be running in the same net namespace as the forwarder. Are you able to confirm that in fact the interface exists in that namespace as expected, or?
Yeah, I can check that.
Okay, I mean those are sort of the things that come to mind as to like what could go wrong with AF packet. And like I said, some of them I'm sure have occurred to you already. This is the tricky part. You actually have a lot more depth than most folks on some of the low level data plane stuff. So I'm never quite sure which ideas have occurred to you and which haven't. So, okay, but yeah, if we get an issue about that, we can track it down, because the thing is, we will need to figure that out for getting GKE to work.
Okay.
Cool. And then this VPP external socket.
I think it's in progress. It works fine.
Okay, good. And then I noticed the stuff come through on the SAT socket, which is good. And then the last one is the healing stuff. And I know there's been a lot of conversation there, but I've lost a little bit track where we stand on that. Let me take a quick look. Yes, I know where we stand on this. You provided lots of excellent feedback I have to go respond to. So
yeah, this problem was related to when forwarder restarts and it has the same name. There is a couple of problems here. The first one, it is related to VXLAN VNI dumping. As I remember, you have raised this problem.
I suggested there was at least something here where there might be a problem. I didn't get far enough just to know there was a problem, but I presume you've gone through and identified there is actually a problem.
Yes, we have this problem because we need to think about how we will restore all of the generated VNIs for a VNI chain element. It is not obvious.
Okay.
Uh,
I've got that.
So in the second problem is related to WireGuard, and because WireGuard doesn't have peer index in dump details, so
Okay.
yes, we need to update VPP to continue.
Okay. So that hopefully that's not a terribly hard thing. To add that to dump details.
Yeah, I think it's not so hard.
Okay, good. On the VNI restore case, I'll take a look at that as well. Okay, so that those are good points. I've added this to my list of things to comment on. Now, I noticed there's a test DNS thing that is not actually shown here, at least not yet, but what I've gotten to.
Test DNS, yes, we have here. It is line 66, as I see.
And that's why I've not gotten to it yet. Okay.
Yes, I've collect all information and attached there.
Okay.
The problem here is it is reproduced only on CI, kind CI. Locally, it working fine, and on packet cluster, it works fine. So I think it is related to GitHub machine configuration, probably something wrong with DNS. So.
Okay, so that's good. I'll add that list of things to take a look at as well. So we got those pieces. And this is for the forwarder restart stuff that we discussed, and you got those tracked there.
Yep.
And then the delete interface before termination.
I've prepared PR. It is a cleanup chain element. I've prepared it for SDK. Please take a look. We have discussed it in this issue.
Got it.
Yes.
That's good. And the good news is that one has to always be careful when you do drive-by architecture. It looked like it would probably work quite cleanly. And I have great confidence in your implementation, so hopefully that will take care of things nicely. Let's see. All right. And then, all right, so we got the Jaeger example. So now we're down into the stuff that Nikita is working on. So the Jaeger example stuff, I presume that's been working for a while now, if I recall.
Yep.
Cool. And then remind me what's going on with the add release deployment action for Docker images, for second Docker image.
Oh, it looks like improvement for releasing.
Got it.
Currently, it's not super priority for us, and Nikita is working with mutually aware NECs at this moment.
Okay, it may also be something worth because my suspicion is it's not a terribly hard thing to fix. Oh wait, it's actually not just the deployment actions for the second Docker image, I suspect. Is there an issue with the propagation of the information about the second Docker image as well?
Can you please open the issue?
Absolutely.
I did not remember it actually.
Only updates. What are the two deployment case?
Oh, I got it. Yep, we have one problematic repository, forwarder OVS. In this repository, we have two versions of the forwarder. The first forwarder is working in host mode, and the second forwarder is not working in host mode, and that's why we have two images for this repository. And currently OVS forwarder is not releasing the second image on release.
Okay, it's probably something we're talking about at the community meeting to figure out what's going on. Right, because one of the things that we've typically stuck to is, you know, one Docker image per repo. And so I just want to kind of understand a little bit better what's going on here, because or if there's something that really needs to be done here, if it's lower priority for us, maybe something the Ericsson folks could pick up. So I'll add that to the community meeting agenda as well to discuss. Cool. Looks like other than
currently we have deployments for separate forwarder that is working in host mode. So if we'll cut one image from that repository, we need to cut the deployment, or probably we can create a separate repository for host mode forwarder.
Well, or it may just be, you know, it may just involve setting some environment variables. Like there's a lot of stuff to discuss on that front. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I mean, it may be the right answer for 1.3 is exactly the one you talked about here of just having a release deployments for a second Docker image. More than anything, I'm just curious to understand what's going on.
Okay,
because
I like the topic for agenda.
Many thanks. Cool. So mutually aware NSCs, how is that going, Nikita?
It's almost completed. We just have a couple of PRs to match, and it's ready.
Cool. Could we get those PRs listed here? I'd love to sort of have a pointer to them.
Yeah, okay.
Cool, many thanks. Awesome. And then anything else, Nikita, before we move on to Nikolay?
No.
Excellent. So welcome to Team Nikolay. It's good to have you here. So you're working on the admission webhook crashes after a node restart. I think this just came in the last day or two. Is that correct?
Yeah, we put it today on the kind of backlog. I saw this when I started to play with the clusters. This is an issue I can confirm, but I don't have anything to say yet because somebody started to look into.
Yeah, no, that's exactly my point. It's new, so cool. And then the delay. No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
As for this, I have actually kind of concern because there is a PR for that issue, which only adds some properties for readiness probe, but it's not. It is not that actually the issue says about, because it says delay pod start. So my question is, what the proper solution do you expect to have here? It is really to delay pod start, or just to adjust some probe properties?
So this is something where, and I'll take a note that this has to be broken into two issues. There are two things that are actually talked about in this issue, and they got muddled together. Right. So the first thing that's talked about is the bit about adjusting probe parameters for readiness probing. So let me give you the background, because you weren't actually here for the discussion that led to this issue, and it may help to know a little bit more. So Ericsson was doing upgrade testing. So they went and they did a Helm upgrade on their Helm charts, because they keep separate Helm charts, and they basically did upgrade testing of network service mesh. And when they first did this, it was taking about 5 minutes, which made no one happy. So they poked at the problem to try and figure out why it was taking so long. And the first thing they found was that if you adjusted the probe parameters, that it ended up starting up much more quickly. And so that's where the first piece of this is, which is readiness probe settings for the pods. Now, the second thing that they were doing that turned out to make things go much faster is that when network service mesh comes up, it tries to get an identity from Spire. If it fails to get an identity from Spire, then it just, in typical cloud native fashion, it just says, okay, I can't do my job and I'm crashing now, and it crashes. And then Kubernetes will restart it after some period of time, but that could be, depending on how many times it crashes, that could take an extra 30 seconds, for example, for it to get restarted. And so that ends up being sort of a bad problem in terms of adding to the amount of time it takes, because if I go to do an upgrade and I upgrade and for some reason it has an issue getting its identity from Spire, then it crashes and maybe it's another 30 seconds or a minute before it tries again. So that's not great. And so the second issue in here is about this thing that they were doing, and they were doing this with a really simple sort of shell scripty thing. We want to do something a little more sophisticated in the Go code. We probably don't want to do the sleeping game, which will make it, I think, quite a bit faster. But what they were doing is just waiting until the Spire stuff was up. And so I think what you're pointing to is, hopefully it's clear enough in this issue, the thing about the pod thresholds, the readiness probe thresholds, but the actual delay pod start until Spire server is reachable is probably not sufficiently clear here. And so should be clarified a bit. Does that sound about right?
Oh, Ed, I got a question. As I know, we are using gRPC probes for to make sure that pod is ready.
Mm-hmm.
And why is it not enough to get that Spire is ready or not?
Oh, because Spire isn't running in our pods.
It's a check for Spire pods.
Well, so this readiness probe is a check for NSM pods, right?
Okay, for NSM pods, we have gRPC health probe that is using SPIFFE ID parameter. And in my mind, it will okay only when Spire is started and it is working.
Oh, I see your point. That basically, effectively, the health probe is only going to actually work properly when Spire is up and running, because that health probe needs to get Spire as well. And so we could fail on the gRPC health probe.
Yes, will fail if Spire is not ready.
Okay, we'll add that into the rework of the issue.
So I think in general, with this issue, we need only to tune parameters for probes and verify that it is helping.
So that for this issue, yes, let's go ahead and tune those parameters. For the Spire thing, I think that's a broader discussion we probably want to have in the community meeting just to make sure we get it right, and sort of talk through the problem. But I think, yeah, so I think that's definitely a thing. Anything else?
I think mostly that's all from our side. Guys, do you have any questions?
All right, let's go to the community call. See you there.
See you.